The towering cedars stood guard over Whispering Moose Canyon as snow draped the landscape in hush. It was here, under the boundless heavens, that Clara Bennett found herself forsaken, too slight, too delicate for the unforgiving ridge life they claimed. Her kin's cart vanished beyond the crest, leaving only ruts, swiftly erased by winter's opening gale. The lodge they'd sworn to return, and Ray's remained a mere murmur on the breeze. For 3 nights she crouched in a crude lean-to, her slender fingers shaking against the frost. On the 5th dawn, a silhouette crossed the drifts. A lad, scarcely older than she, 17 winters, gazed down with eyes holding neither compassion nor censure, only resolve. "You need a solid roof," he declared plainly. Calloused palms already gauging the span between 2 stout cedars. What could spur a ridge lad to raise a lodge for an unknown when all others had judged her unfit for the labor? Elias Harper had dwelt solitary in these ridges since he was 11. When the grizzled hunter discovered him half-iced by the stream and schooled him in endurance before dying 2 seasons later, the hatchet in his grip polished sleek from endless swings had framed his own modest lodge 3 kilometers south. Now it would frame another. The girl observed him warily, curled beneath cedar boughs, her eyes rich hazel against ashen cheeks, tracking his steps as he strode the narrow glade. She resembled a frost finch, all brittle frame and muted quivering. "Got a name?" he inquired, crouching to probe the earth near a level patch between 2 elder cedars. "Clara," she answered, voice scarcely riding the gust. "Clara Bennett." She drew a frayed cloak closer. "I don't want handouts. They'll return once they've staked the claim." Elias dipped his head, sparing no effort to dispute what both recognized as false. 3 nights was no mishap. 3 nights meant they'd journeyed far enough to persuade themselves she'd already succumbed. "Not giving handouts," he said, rising to trace a crude square with his heel. "Just a roof. Everyone needs beams against the ridge winter." "Why help me?" Doubt edged her tone. "You don't know me." Elias prodded the soil with the haft of his hatchet. "Out here, we aid or we perish. Plain as that." He flicked a look at the lowering sky. "Lost my kin fording the pass. Old man Fletcher sheltered me, though he scarce had scraps for himself." He lifted a shoulder. "Now I pass it on when called." As twilight gathered, Elias kindled a true blaze beside her rough refuge, demonstrating how to stack the fuel for peak warmth with scant smoke. From his satchel, he drew cured elk and a tiny sack of herbs. "Too dark to fell timber today," he noted, passing her a steaming mug. "But dawn will start it. Got a site chosen. Solid runoff, first light, late shadow." Clara took the mug with unsteady grip. "I can't repay you. Not seeking coin." He fixed on the flames. "Lodge needs raising, and I can raise it." The plainness of his words lingered between them as constellations wheeled above. "I'm not sturdy," she confessed at last, voice faint. "That's why they left me. Always ailing as a babe, never much use at tasks. Father said I'd only hinder them, another belly through the cold." She eyed her narrow wrists, said they'd fetch a proper cart once they'd set roots. Elias nodded. "Sturdy takes many shapes. My grip is sturdy for framing. Maybe yours is sturdy for another craft." He spread a raw hide by the fire, yet not too near. "You'll bunk in your lean-to tonight. By first spring melt, you'll have beams that bar the gale. My oath on it." Clara studied him in the fire glow, his weathered visage strangely youthful under a snarl of black hair, palms hardened past their seasons. "Why a lodge? Why not guide me to the closest outpost?" Closest outpost, 5 days' hard march. Winter's closing swift, he swept a hand at the encircling ridges. "Besides, this canyon is prime ground, sheltered, deer paths close, clear spring, fine spot for a soul to carve a life." "You think I can last here?" Alone, skepticism tinged her words. Elias peered into the gloom, past their blaze. "Everyone's alone out here," he said at length. "But alone needn't mean powerless." He aimed at the stars. "Learn to heed those that you're never truly adrift. Learn to read the ridges. You're never truly starved." Something altered in Clara's face, the first tender sprout of hope pushing through. "I can learn," she murmured. Elias gave a satisfied nod. Tomorrow we lay the cornerstones. Rest now. As Clara slipped into her lean-to, Elias lingered by the flames, tallying timber, days, stores. He'd hunt less, raise more. His own cold season stores would lag. It was nothing. Her quiet resolve had struck a chord in him. Out here, where the wild peeled away masks and the ridges weighed every soul the same, he saw a mirror, someone cast off who refused to vanish. The hatchet lay across his thighs, its haft burnished by countless strokes. By thaw it would carve a roof from raw canyon and perhaps something deeper. Though what, he wasn't ready to name. Dawn cracked sharp and bright, gilding the ridge crests while the canyon floor stayed in dusk. Clara woke to the steady crunch of boots on iron-crusted earth. Blinking, she saw Elias nearing, tools lashed to his back and a small pouch in one fist. "You returned," she said, her breath a ghost in the chill. Elias's face stayed even. "I would." He lowered his load, an axe, a buck saw, cord, and oddments Clara couldn't name. From the pouch, he drew a coarse heel of rye bread and broke it, handing her half. "Eat." Lights burning. They chewed in silence as the sun climbed. When done, Elias strode to the square he'd scratched the night before. Clara trailed, hugging her cloak against the bite. "First law of ridge lodges," Elias said, kneeling to prod a swath of soil. "Build where water flees, not where it pools." His fingers sifted the dirt, testing grit. "Feel it." Clara knelt, copying him. The earth rasped between her fingers, laced with pebbles. "Good runoff," Elias said. "Means dry planks come spring flood." He rose and paced the outline, pausing to flick aside rocks or twigs. "Second law, know your sun. Winter lights gold. Need glass where it'll drink the dawn." Clara watched, wrapped by a sure reading of the land, as if it were a well-worn map. "Can I help?" she asked at last. Elias eyed her narrow build, measuring. "Start with stones, small ones. Stack them yonder." He pointed just beyond the marked square. "We'll bed the sills on them." Clara bent to it, set on proving worth. The first stone, smooth and slate gray, palm-sized, she rolled in her hands before setting it on the pile. "This is the first stone of my roof," she breathed, too low for Elias to catch. The morning rolled in steady work. Elias dropped 2 slim cedars, stripping limbs with clean swings. Clara kept clearing, though blisters soon rose and her spine screamed. She pressed on, resting only when Elias ordered it. At noon, he sparked a small fire and produced a fist of dried currants and elk strips from his kit. They ate in easy quiet, the shared sweat forging a shy tether. "Why were you cut loose?" Elias asked abruptly, eyes locking hers. "The truth." Clara stared into the flames. "Always frail, fevers, hacking spells, no strength." She flexed her raw palms. "Father swore I'd never last the trek to the outpost. Said it was mercy to leave me here with rations than watch me waste on the trail." Her voice thinned. Mother didn't argue. Elias nodded, taking it in without remark. And the rations they left. 3 days' food. 1 blanket. Striker. Clara's laugh was barren. "Father vowed he'd come back to raise the lodge once they claimed ground. We both knew he wouldn't." Elias nudged the coals with a stick. "Folks swear oaths lightly when breaking them cost them nothing." After their short pause, they went back to the task. Elias showed Clara how to clear ground right, yanking out roots that could rot and heave the floor later. When she wrestled with a stubborn rock, he didn't shoulder her aside. Instead, he slid a stout limb under the stone and bore down. "Like this," he said, letting the lever do the lifting. "Let the wood carry the load." By late day, the foundation plot lay scraped clean and true. Elias began setting the big stones in a crisp rectangle, teaching Clara to find each rock's flat face and seat it snug. "A lodge is only as sure as what it rests on," he said, dovetailing stones like puzzle pieces. "Skimp the base, curse it all winter." As the sun slid behind the western crags, Clara stepped back to take in the day's work. Only the stones were laid, yet she could already see walls climbing from the dirt. "It's real," she breathed. Elias gathered his gear as dusk pooled across the canyon. "Need to reach my camp before full dark." Critters get bold this season. You're going? Alarm slipped into her voice. Back at first light, he said, keep your fire low but alive tonight. Bank it like I showed. Shouldering his kit, he tipped his chin at the neat stone rectangle. Tomorrow we raise the uprights. He paused, then added, you did solid work today. The plain words warmed Clara more than the flames. She watched him melt into the darkening trees, the smooth, slate-gray stone, the first of her foundation, curled in her fist like a charm. Tonight she would sleep beside a promise turning solid. Hold steady, he murmured, his rough hands guiding Clara's smaller ones around the thin brass wire. Like this, gentle but sure. They knelt at the lip of the woods where a narrow deer run threaded the cedars. The morning air carried cedar sap and the bite of coming snow as Elias showed how to knot a simple new snare. The deer keeps to its track out of habit, he said, watching Clara's fingers copy his. Doesn't spot the loop till it's caught. Feels harsh, Clara whispered, but kept working. Hunger's harsher, Elias answered, flat as stone. When the drift pile, chest high, you'll need meat to stay upright. 5 days had passed since they'd started the lodge. Each dawn Elias arrived with the light, and they worked until the sun bled out. The foundation was finished, corner posts sunk deep, and the first courses of wall were rising. But today Elias had called for a different lesson. Roof matters, he'd said over their morning coals, but feeding yourself matters more. Snare done, Clara rocked back on her heels, eyeing her work with wary pride. We'll hold. If set true. Elias checked the delicate knot. You got a knack for fine work. Steady. The surprised praise heated her cheeks. My mother claimed my hands are my only worth. Said I could set tiny stitches even when I was too weak for real labor. Elias's brow creased. Your mother measured usefulness narrow. They laid 3 more snares along the run before heading back to the site. Elias had packed a small iron kettle that morning. Now he filled it from the spring, tossing in cured elk and wild tubers. Another lesson, he said, ringing stones for the fire. A cooking blaze that doesn't throw heat to the sky. While the stew bubbled, they turned to the lodge. Today's job was notching timbers for the corners, exact cuts that demanded focus. Elias swung first, axe biting clean and sure. Your turn, he said, handing her the tool. Clara hesitated. I haven't the muscle for it. Try anyway, Elias said, not unkind. Won't know till you swing. The axe felt like lead in her grip, but Clara refused to falter. Her first blow barely scarred the cedar. The second fared little better. Elias watched, silent, neither lifting a hand nor finding fault. After several minutes of ragged breathing, Clara let the axe sag. I told you, she muttered, disappointment thick in her throat. Elias didn't take the tool. He stepped in close. You're wrestling the iron, he said. Let the weight do the work. Aim lift guide. Don't shove. He shaped the motion in the air beside her, never touching. Try again. Slower. Clara lifted, let the blade drop on its own arc. The cut sank clean. Better. Elias dipped his chin. By noon break, she had notched one timber, rough but true. Her arms quivered, yet the ache felt earned. They ate stew as wind whipped the first fat flakes across the canyon. Early snow, Elias said, scanning the iron sky. Will it stop the lodge? Some. Can't seat logs in deep drift. He eyed the half-raised walls. We'll shore your lean-to first. After eating, he showed her how to brace the cedar bough shelter, lashing extra poles and weaving tighter windbreaks. Not a lodge, he said when they stepped back, but it'll hold you till we finish the real one. Late afternoon, they checked the snares. First 2 empty. At the third, Clara's breath caught. A snowshoe hare dangled limp. It worked, she whispered, pride and pity tangling in her ribs. Elias knelt. Your first kill. You take it. He showed her how to free the animal, reset the loop, then skin and gut it clean. Her hands shook at first, steady by the end. Honor what feeds you, he said. That's the Ridgeway. Dusk came with heavy, deliberate flakes. Elias shouldered his pack. If it dumps overnight, I might not cross tomorrow. Clara cradled the wrapped hare meat, her first self-won meal. I'll be here, she said. Learning. The trading outpost crouched in a cupped hollow 3 ridges west, a knot of raw plank sheds that passed for town in these far heights. Elias trudged in on foot, a roll of pelts across his back. The monthly trek was non-negotiable. Salt, powder, lead, things the wild wouldn't give. Inside, heat rolled from a squat iron stove. A handful of men on benches let talk die when Elias entered. He gave a short nod and went to the counter. Gideon Holt, keeper of the post, sized him with pale eyes. Harper, early this round. Elias laid the furs. Need goods. While Holt fingered the pelts, murmurs circled the room. Elias paid them no mind. Lone weighs bread talk. Heard a tale? Holt said, weighing coffee beans. Someone raising walls in Whispering Moose Canyon. With a girl. His gaze sharpened. That you, Harper? Elias met it. Raising a lodge. Ain't your canyon. Ain't filed. Holt scratched the ledger. Girl in the story. She yours? She's her own. Needed a roof before the White Death. A whiskered man by the stove hawked and spat. Mighty kindly, Harper. Never pegged you for soft. Elias tested a length of canvas. 10 yards of this. Holt cut the cloth. Winter's shaping mean. Signs say brutal. He glanced up. Lodge won't top out before the first big blow. It'll stand, Elias said. As Holt tallied the barter, a lanky youth edged closer, curiosity winning over sense. They say she was ditched. That true. Elias fixed him with a flat stare. Your concern how? The kid backed off, palms up. Just the skin. Strange, leaving a body behind. Elias finished fast, picking items he'd never bought. Dried pears, an extra wool blanket, a paper of needles. Girl must be something, Holt muttered, nodding a salt sack. Girl's trying to live, Elias said. Same as any. Outside, low clouds spat wet snow. The door creaked. Holt stepped out with a twist of paper. Here, gruff. Wintergreen drops. My woman liked them in the cold. Elias took the small gift. Pass plug solid in deep winter, Holt warned. 10-foot drifts, easy. Elias nodded. I know the odds. Make sure she does too, Holt said and vanished inside. The hike back dragged under the extra load and slurring snow. By the time Elias topped the last ridge above Whispering Moose Canyon, the light was bleeding out and the flakes had thickened. Through the swirl he saw the half-raised lodge, uprights like guards, walls climbing. A thin ribbon of smoke curled from Clara's lean-to. Something eased in his chest. She'd kept the fire alive. Clara stepped from the shelter as he neared, face lighting. 3 days gone. You came. Relief plain. Elias set the pack down. Said I would. She'd tightened the weave of her shelter, wedged stones against the wind. Quick study. Wasn't sure, she admitted. With the snow. He tipped his chin toward the site. Any headway? Clara's chin rose. Sorted the timbers by length like you showed. Stripped bark off a dozen. She dug in her pocket, held out a small cedar button, rough but clear, 2 neat holes. Found your spare, shirt snagged on a branch. Lost a button. Made this. Color touched her cheeks. It's not. Elias turned the button in his rough fingers. Smooth grain, holds true. Good work, he said low. Thanks. He glanced at the iron sky. Storm's closing. Let's cover the lumber. They thatched pine boughs over the stacked logs, then braced Clara's shelter tighter. In her motions he caught a new steadiness, small, but sprouting like the first needle after frost. Frost laced the ground in lace as December clamped down on Whispering Moose Canyon. The lodge walls stood chest-high now, timbers notched with sharpening skill, roof beams still waiting. Each dawn Clara woke to ice feathers inside her lean-to, pretty pitiless. We're racing the big one, Elias said, breath clouding as they eyed the frame. Next blow could bury us. Clara nodded, hands buried in the oversized coat he'd traded for. It swallowed her but kept the bite off. What's next? She asked, tracing the rectangle that would be home. Windows and door, Elias said. Box without lights, just a cave. He unrolled a scrap of elk hide marked with charcoal lines. Need glass panes. Good door wants iron hinges. Can't whittle those from cedar. Clara's brow creased. Will we find such things? Elias pointed west. 2 days hard march. Ghost Hamlet. First winter killed it. Shells still stand. You go in this? No choice. He traced the lodge outline with a scarred finger. Need the fittings before the pass seals. A cold knot cinched Clara's gut. It's risky. Freezing in a half-lodge is riskier. His eyes held hers, steady. Can you hold alone a few days? The words weighed, more than weather talk. A test of every lesson, a nod to the strength she'd grown. Yes, she said, voice steadier than her pulse. I can tend fire, run snares. Elias nodded once. Leave at first light. Back and forth if the sky stays kind. That night he drilled her again. Stack firewood tight. Hang the cache high. Read the wind shift before a blow. Then low. If the lean-to fails, my lodge is 2 miles north. Keys under the north cornerstone. The offer startled her. In all their weeks, he'd never once opened that door. Thank you, she said. Dawn broke knife-sharp and clear. Elias vanished west with a light pack and a promise. Day 1 alone, asterisk snares gave a lean hair. She dressed it clean, salted the pelt, swept new snow from the timbers, and roofed them with cedar boughs. Day 2 asterisk cloud sagged, wind knifed through every seam. By dusk the snow came, soft, then fierce. She fed the fire-heavy logs, burrowed under both blankets. All night the storm screamed down the passes, snow hissing through cracks. The flames shrank to sullen coals. Third dawn asterisk no dawn, only gray degrees of dark. Clara crawled out into knee-deep drift, flakes so thick the lodge frame vanished 10 paces off. Cold had rooted in her marrow. She clawed for more wood, but numb fingers dropped the flint. Tinder refused. Tears iced on her lashes. By noon the truth was plain. The lean-to would not outlast this blow. Elias was still a day out, maybe trapped himself. She stuffed her few things into a sack, cinched the oversized coat, and started north. Follow the spring run to the lightning-split cedar, then east up the easy rise. An hour's walk became a staggering crawl. She fell twice, rose slower each time. Landmarks drowned in white. Only the creek's muffled voice kept her oriented. When the squat shape of Elias's lodge finally loomed, she sobbed once. Relief, not weakness. Fingers like wood scrabbled under the north stone. The iron key bit cold, but turned true. Inside, still air, the scent of pine smoke and cured leather. A stone hearth waited, kindling laid in perfect order. With the last spark of strength, Clara struck flint to steel. Flame caught, leapt, and the small lodge began to breathe warmth back into her bones. Warmth crept back into Clara's limbs, and she let her gaze drift over the small, private room she'd never thought to enter. Everything was spare, deliberate. A low bench hewn smooth, a shelf of whittled bowls, a single iron hook holding a patched coat. On the rough plank table sat a square of glass, small, flawless, and 2 iron hinges, pitted but solid. Elias had come back, found her gone, and carried the window and hinges here. He would come looking. When the storm cracked open, pale light slid through the single window and woke her. For a heartbeat she forgot where she was. Solid roof, tight walls. Then the night's terror rushed back. The dying fire, the white-out march, the key under the stone. She pushed up from the bearskin pallet. The hearth glowed. Fresh would have been laid. A small kettle steamed over low coals. You're up. Elias filled the doorway, arms loaded with split cedar, snow glittering on his shoulders. Storm broke at first light, he said, stacking the wood. Your lean-to's a mound. Clara stood, suddenly aware she was inside his walls. The fire failed. I remembered the key. Good call. You be ice. He ladled thick broth into a carved bowl and pressed it into her hands. Eat. Work waits. Work? Check the lodge. See what the snow took. The broth steadied her. As they readied to leave, Elias handed her 2 oval frames laced with rawhide. Snowshoes. Walk on top, not through. She fumbled the straps. He knelt, cinched them tight to her boots, quick, impersonal. Like paddling with sleds on your feet, he said, the ghost of a grin. You'll get the rhythm. The trek was slow, drifts swallowing every marker. When the sight appeared, Clara's breath caught. Only the top course of logs showed, the rest entombed. Worse than I figured, Elias muttered. Before they could start digging, shapes moved at the tree lean, Two figures on snowshoes, bows slung, buckskin stitched with unfamiliar beadwork. Elias's hand brushed his belt knife. The strangers halted a polite distance off. The elder raised an open palm. "Oh, Lodge Raiser." Elias mirrored the sign. "Oh, hunters." "We saw two smokes in the canyon," the elder said in careful English. "Rare in deep winter." "One's my roof," Elias answered, tilting his head north. "Other's the new one." The elder's eyes slid to Clara, curious, not hostile. "I am Greycloud. This is my sister's son, Running Brook. We hunt these ridges when snow is high." "Elias Harper." "This is Clara Bennett." Greycloud studied the half-buried walls. "Winter building is hard. Walls rise true, though." Approval warmed his voice. Clara saw Elias's shoulders ease. "Your woman is slight for ridge life," Greycloud noted. "Not my woman," Elias said. "Just needs a roof." Running Brook spoke for the first time, voice clear and young. "The small ones endure when they're cunning, like foxes." Greycloud swept a hand toward the half-buried lodge. "Need hands to dig?" The offer caught Elias off guard. "Why help?" Greycloud's weathered face folded into a faint grin. "Winter stretches long. Word of the Lodge Raiser and the slight girl already drifts between fires. Better to meet neighbors than guests." Elias waited, then dipped his chin. "And welcome." Four backs bent to the task. The hunters wielded wide slabs of birch bark like shovels, flinging snow in clean arcs. By noon the foundation lay bare, walls freed to the top course. During a rest, Running Brook stepped to Clara, gloved fist opening. "For you." A palm-sized cedar fox, bright eyes, full brush, nestled in his hand. "For the small one who outfoxes the odds." Clara turned the carving, wonder softening her face. "It's perfect." "Thank you." Running Brook nodded once. "Fox shifts with the snow. Never quits." Late light slanted gold across the drifts when Greycloud and Running Brook shouldered their packs. "Storm tore our camp," Greycloud said. "Must mend before dark." "When do you rejoin your band?" Elias asked. "Spring green up. Till then, these canyons feed us." He eyed the open roof. "Ridgepole wants many arms. Work is lighter shared." Elias caught the meaning. "We'll take the help when you return." The hunters melted into the trees. Clara closed her fingers around the cedar fox. "They'll truly come back?" "Ridge folk keep oaths, English or not." Elias scanned the sky. "Dark's coming. Home." Snowshoes whispering, Clara felt the circle widen, past bear survival, past just the two of them, into something new and unnamed. Community. "Hold it true," Elias called, setting a long cedar shake against the rafters. Clara braced on the ladder, arms quivering but steady, keeping the angle exact. January rode in on knife-cold clearings broken by white squalls. Every calm hour they hammered the lodge ahead of the deep freeze still lurking. Walls stood sealed, clay and grass, chinking Clara had mixed and pressed by hand. Window frames cradled the ghost town glass. Only the roof gaped, raw to the sky. "Good," Elias said, driving a peg. "Next." Clara passed another shake, motion sure now. Calluses armored her palms. Sinew laced her forearms. "How many left?" she asked, eyeing the split stack. "Enough for daylight. Storm by dusk." They read the weather in cloud bellies, wind teeth, raven silence. Sure enough, the west bruised purple by mid-afternoon. They raced the squall, pegs flying. "Last one," Elias declared, hammering home the final shake. Down. Clara descended, legs trembling from the climb. Half the roof still lay open, pine boughs thrown across like a prayer against the coming weight. "Will it hold?" Clara asked, voice thin with worry. Elias eyed the half-shingled roof. Better than open sky. He flicked a glance at the bruised horizon. "Tonight'll test it." They lashed tools under the bench, weighted the cedar stack with elk hide and stones. First flakes chased them back to Elias's lodge, where Clara had slept since the last big blow. Practical, not intimate. She took the narrow bunk. He rolled a hide by the fire. Space stayed sacred, unspoken. By dusk the storm hit like a hammer. Wind screamed down the passes, rattling the stout walls, sneaking snow through every seam. The hearth roared, greedy for wood. Meanest yet, Elias muttered, feeding another log. Clara sat blanket-wrapped, cedar fox in her fist, her pocket charm against the dark. Will my lodge stand? Walls will. Roof's the gamble. Past midnight, a gust slammed the cabin so hard the logs groaned. Then, crack, like the sky split open. Elias was up, knife in hand. Lightning. Too damn close. Silence after, thick as the snow. No second strike. Elias stood watch at the window, shoulders rigid. Nothing till light, he said at last. Dawn came hushed and white. They snowshoed out, Elias breaking trail, Clara in his wake. The lodge sight stopped her heart. A giant cedar lay across the half-roof, one corner stove in. Shakes scattered like broken wings. Clara stared, tears rising. All of it gone. Elias crouched, testing a crush beam. Corner post shot. Lost shingles. Roof's the worst. He pried a splintered shake free. Charred, split by the strike. Keep this. Reminder of what? Ruin. Of grit. He nodded at the wreck, still upright. Like you. He tapped the fallen cedar. Seasoned grain, straight. Better shakes than we split by hand. Clara closed her fist around the lightning-scarred wood. How are you not raging? Elias met her eyes, calm as deep water. Nothing real comes cheap in these canyons. He lifted the axe. We're not restarting. We're resuming. A hearth is a lodge's heart, Elias said weeks later, setting smooth river stones in a careful arc. Build it wrong. Smoke chokes you. Build it right. It warms your bones for life. Asterisk, asterisk. February had eased in with rare mercy. Clear, knife-cold days that let them work. A string of bright, biting days let them claw the lodge back from ruin. The new roof, cut from the lightning-felled cedar, was tighter, heavier, truer. Walls needed only a few swapped timbers. Now the heart of the place, the hearth. These stones have to lock like teeth, Elias said, turning a river cobble in his palm. No mud can fix a lazy fit. Clara watched the ritual she'd come to know. When his voice slowed and his eyes narrowed, a lesson was coming. Knowledge he judged worth keeping. The hearth isn't just heat, he went on, stepping back to eye the rising curve. It's cook fire, wash water, drying rack, center of every breath you take in winter. Stone by stone they built through the morning. At waist height, Elias pointed to the creek. River clay now binds the gaps. They followed the half-frozen run to a cut bank where rust-red clay lay bare under snow. Antler picks pried out cold, sticky clods. Elias's rough trough carried the load. Clay cracks alone, he said, dumping it. Grass fibers knitted tough. Back at the lodge, Clara knelt, kneading stiff earth until her shoulders burned, working in measured handfuls of sun-cured grass. Elias tested the mix between thumb and forefinger. Not soupy, not dust. Good. They sealed the stones, Elias showing the press and twist, then guiding her hands, firm, brief, teacher to student. Drive it deep, he said. No air pockets. By late light, the hearth stood finished. A clean stone arch, chimney throat-shaped to pull. Elias circled it once, tapping seams, then nodded. Fire it. Kindling, shavings, a breath of life from flint and steel. Flames leapt. Clara's eyes tracked the smoke. It rose in a thin, obedient ribbon, drawn straight up the chimney and out into the dusk. It draws, she whispered. You drew it, Elias said. The slight easing at the corners of his eyes was high praise. Dark settled. The new fire painted the raw walls gold. Elias showed her how to bank the night's heat, big chunks over glowing coals. Wake to embers if you tend right. They ate elk stew simmered on the fresh stones, the lodge already breathing like a living thing. Their first meal cooked in what would be Clara's own lodge. It tastes different here, she said, the elk stew suddenly richer on her tongue. Elias dipped his head. Food knows when it's home. The word home landed soft but sure, the first time either had spoken aloud. Something inside Clara unclenched. I'll stay tonight, she said. Elias glanced up, surprise flickering before the mask slid back. Inside's raw. No bunk. I've blankets. I've the hearth. He waited, then nodded. Your roof. I'll be at my place if the cold bites. At the door he paused, tools in hand. Elias. He turned. Thank you. Not just the walls for the teaching. A quick shadow crossed his face, something unguarded, then gone. You learn fast. After he left, Clara spread her bedroll by the fire. Outside, the mountain night locked tight, stars like chipped ice. Inside, heat, safety, the smell of new cedar and smoke. She slept to the heart's low song, wall she had raised, roof she had pegged, no longer too small. Deep winter clamped, whispering Moose Canyon. Breath froze midair. Stars looked brittle enough to crack. Outside work died. Clara stayed inside the finished lodge, snow banking the door to her waist. Solitude would once have crushed her. Now it fit like a glove. She rose with the fire, banked it at dusk, checked snares through a slot in the shutters, melted snow for water carved by lamplight. Elias still came every day, wading drifts chest high, ice in his lashes, bringing meat, salt, news of the weather. On the worst days, he appeared only long enough to stack wood inside the door, then vanished again into white. Their talk stayed spare. Wind direction, creaking ice on the spring, raven counts. Yet Clara learned the small tells, how his left brow lifted when a storm would break, the half-breath before he smiled. One noon the wind screamed, so loud the lodge timbers hummed. Teach me carving, Clara said. If I'm snowed in, let it be useful. Elias dug in his pack. A short blade, 3 pale chunks of pine. Start small. Wood has opinions. Listen. He showed the safe grip, the follow of grain, the seeing of shape inside blank. Storm sealed the door. He could not leave. First night under the same roof. Distance held, Clara in the narrow bunk, Elias on high by the hearth. But the air felt charged, a line crossed in silence. Carving became Clara's winter breath. Early foxes looked like badgers, owls like loaves. But her needle-steady fingers remembered patience. Grain by grain, shape answered. Elias hauled and knew would each visit. Pine for quick practice, maple for keeps, even a scrap of cherry pride from a ghost town chair. He corrected her cuts the same way he'd set a log. Plain words, no fuss. Your hands know before your head does, he said once, watching a spoon bowl hollow under her blade. Let him talk. Midwinter, the calendar's black heart, those springs still hid beyond the ridges. Mountain custom, learned from the old trapper, called for a nod to endurance. Elias arrived with a deerskin pouch. Inside, a fist of coffee beans, a twist of sugar. Halfway day, he said, setting them by the fire. Lights stretching, even if the cold won't admit it. Clara brewed the coffee thick and dark. The scent filled the small lodge like church incense. 2 people, 1 tin pot, the hush of snow against the roof, ordinary, impossible. I've got something, she said when the cups were empty. From under the bunk, she drew a cloth roll. 3 spoons, pine, mountain, star handles, every ridge and ray exact. For your place, she said, cheeks hot, to swap the old ones. Elias turned them slow, thumb tracing the tiny peaks. Fine work, he said, voice low, something new in it. Better than mine. You showed me the grain. This, he lifted the mountain spoon, you saw. Silence settled, easy as embers. Clara felt the shift inside her. Hand sure, arms rope strong, fear burned off like morning fog. The lodge stood proof, log, stone, and smoke. Deep water in your head? Elias asked, catching her stare. Just wondering what green up will look like. He nodded, reading the real question. Spring hands you choices. New trails. Outside, snow kept falling. Inside, something else pushed roots. 3 days of whiteout left the first wolf sign. Big pads printing East Ridge to Creek, winter fur dragging. Elias found them on his dawn circle. Careful now, he told Clara, breath clouding as they crouched over the tracks. Hard winter pushes them down. Hunger makes wolves, and men forget manners. 5 toes, wider than her palm. They come for us, usually take deer, but empty bellies rewrite rules. That night, the valley answered with howls, thin at first, then sliding closer, threading the dark like cold wire. They're talking, Elias said, the howls threading the dark beyond the lodge walls. Planning the hunt. For us. Clara's voice cracked. Deer, most likely, but we ready anyway. Next days he drilled her. Read the signs. Pads 2 near the door, gut piles left bold. Birds gone quiet. He strung tin bells on twine across the yard. Never smell fear, he said. Makes you meet. What if they come close? Grow big, loud. He threw his arms skyward, barked a short, hard sound. Most scatter. There's always one that pushes. February thinned. Tracks braided tighter around the lodge. At dusk, Clara saw gray ghosts sliding between trunks. Elias stayed nights now, pallet by the fire. Distance held, but the howls felt less lonely. Then, clear noon, Clara stepped out for wood. 20 paces off, a big gray watched, amber eyes sharp as flint. Wood slipped from her arms. Clara, Elias's voice, low, from the doorway. Slow. Back to me. She breathed, locked eyes, inched rearward. The wolf advanced, one step, two. Big now. Elias rose beside her, arms wide. Clara shouted, raw, four in her throat. Elias cracked the air with a roar. The wolf paused. 3 more shapes melted from the trees. Inside, Elias said, hand on the axe. Slow. The lead wolf lunged. Not full charge, a test. Elias whipped the axe in a shining arc, steel hissing past the muzzle. The wolf sprang back. Clara snatched a burning brand from the hearth, thrust it forward, flame and sparks between them and teeth. Steel and fire. The leader studied, then wheeled, trotting off with lazy pride. The others followed, vanishing like smoke. Clara's legs folded. Elias caught her shoulder. First touch in months, steady as stone. They'll circle again, he said, eyes on the tree lean. Pack that size eats heavy, Elias said. That night, they barred the door with an extra beam, fed the fire high, and wrapped pine branches in fat for torches. Were you afraid? Clara asked, the words slipping out. Elias stared into the flames long enough she thought he'd let it pass. Then a single nod. Only idiots don't fear wolves. Courage is moving anyway. He drew a small thong on a rawhide cord from his pocket. Last winter. Same dance, different ending. Keep it. Clara closed her hand around the tooth. Sharp, real. Fear face turns into spine, he said. The cough started small, a hitch in Elias's breath while splitting kindling. By dusk it scraped like gravel. Clara saw the fever glaze in his eyes. You're burning, she said, reaching. He leaned away. Old reflex, then swayed. Just need rest. Morning proved the lie. He staggered in late. Snow on his lashes, face red against the cold. One step over the threshold, and his knees gave. Clara caught him, propriety burned away. Sit. She pressed him into the chair, palm to brow. Heat rolled off him. How long? Yesterday. Thought it'd break. Mountain fever, her grandmother's name for the winter killer. You're not walking home. She steered him to the bunk. He went, too weak to argue. Shawl tight, basket in hand, Clara stepped into the white. Grandmother's lessons lived in her bones. Pine needle for lungs, willow bark for fever, dried rose hips for strength. She dug roots from under drifts, snapped needles from low boughs, every motion sure. Back inside, Elias thrashed, coughing in ragged bursts. Clara crushed, steeped, strained. Snow-wet cloth on his brow. Bitter tea spoon between cracked lips, breath counted between fits. All day, all night, she kept vigil. Fire high, door barred, wolf tooth on the table like a silent guard. When fever dragged him under, Clara's voice became the rope he clung to. My mother sang when I was sick, he rasped once, eyes glassy but fixed on her. I'm short on songs, Clara said, wringing snow-cold cloth. But I've stories. She fed him her grandmother's tales, mountain spirits, clever foxes, stars that walked lost children home, until his breathing eased into real sleep. 3 days blurred. She dozed upright in the chair, woke to every cough, measured willow bark and pine pitch in poultices, pressed them to his chest. Fourth dawn, his gaze clear, voice a thread. You stayed. Where else? She touched his brow, cool. You pull me through. Plants and stubbornness, she said. Grandmother's legacy. Not just plants. The watching. No one's done that since I was small. The words hung soft between them. Roles reversed. Rescuer rescued. Rest, she ordered. He obeyed. Recovery crept in. He whittled kindling from the bunk, pointed out loose chinking she could mend. Evenings by the fire he talked. Childhood scraps, the old trapper's rough lullabies, the first winter alone. Clara listened, bundling dried herbs into neat packets, feeling the shape of trust. Early March, a brown bird trilled outside the window. "First robin," Elias said, leaning in the doorway, color back in his face. "Always early. Smells thaw before the snow knows." Clara laughed at the tiny singer perched on a snow-laden branch. "How does it live?" "Sees what's hidden." Light changed, thinner, sharper. South slopes wept. Icicles dripped like slow clocks. Elias moved between cabins again. They planed a pine table, drove pegs for coats and pots, laid flat stones across the hearth for steady cooking. Winter still ruled, but its fist had loosened. "Come spring, plant south side," Elias said, wiping sawdust from his hands. "Sun hits first, soil's black and deep." The words drifted between them like smoke. "Come spring." "I don't know beans about gardens," Clara answered. "Seeds know what to do. You just keep them company." A far-off jingle cut the quiet. Harness bells, impossible after months of nothing but wind. Elias's rifle was in his hand before the sound finished. "Stay put." Clara followed anyway. A single wagon rolled out of the trees, horse blowing steam. Elias eased the hammer down. "Holt." Gideon Holt drew up, beard frosted, eyes sharp. "So the tale's true," he called. "Harper built a whole damn house for somebody." Elias gave a short nod. "Pass is early death, Gideon. You're either desperate or crazy." "Both," Holt grunted, climbing down stiff. "Figured you'd be chewing pine bark by now." He hauled 3 burlap sacks from the wagon. Flour, coffee, salt. "Didn't ask for handouts," Elias said. "Call it rent." Holt jerked a thumb toward the valley. "Good grass. I'll run cattle when the flies come. Like knowing honest folk are here." While Elias stacked sacks, Holt strolled to the patch Elias had paced off for a garden. He dug in his coat and tossed Clara a small cloth pouch. "Seed potatoes. Cut 'em eyes up soon as the ground softens. Even a greenhorn can grow spuds." He glanced at the cabin, smoke curling from the chimney, shutters open to the weak sun. Every new home needs roots. New home. The words settled warm in Clara's chest. Holt refused coffee, saying daylight was short. At the wagon he paused. "Folks talk, you know. Clearwater, 3 valleys west. Family there claims their girl died on the trail." The name struck Clara like a thrown stone. She felt Elias look at her. "That change anything for you?" he asked quietly. Clara weighed the pouch in her palm, felt the hard eyes of potatoes inside. "They wrote their story," she said. "I'm living mine." Holt's wagon rattled away until only the creak of trees remained. Clara and Elias stood on the porch, seed potatoes in her fist, the valley quiet around them. Spring was still a promise, but the promise had a shape now. "A promise you can hold. What else will you plant?" Elias asked, voice low, eyes on the white valley. Clara pictured the snow gone, dark earth turned. "Everything that'll take root," she said, the words solid as seed. "A real door doesn't just keep out wind," Elias said weeks later, lifting the thick pine slab into the frame. "It draws the line, home, not camp." April stumbled in, sun 1 hour, snow the next, thaw at noon, ice by dusk. The door was the last big piece. All winter Clara had ducked under hide and canvas. Now the weather allowed a trip. "Need iron hinges," Elias said. 2-day walk to the smith. Clara's first long trek since abandonment. She matched his stride over slush and mud, legs remembering strength. The settlement, 4 shacks and a forge, felt loud after silence. Eyes tracked the slight girl beside the quiet mountain man. Asterisk, that's her. The left behind one, asterisk. Clara met every stare. Let them look. The smith, arms like bridge beams, studied Elias's charcoal sketch. "Clean work. Who taught you?" "Had to," Elias said. Back home, they set the door. Black iron hinges gleamed against pale pine. "Perfect fit," Clara said, running a finger along the metal. "Measure twice, cut once." The door swung smooth, opening onto the finished room. Hearth with iron hooks, table and 2 chairs, bunk snug in the corner. Missing one thing, Elias said. He pulled a leather wrap from his pack, handed it over. Inside, an iron latch, pine branches etched delicate across the face. Smith's wife did the pattern, he muttered. Said a woman's door needs pretty with the strong. He stepped back. Clara closed the door, lifted the latch, let it fall. Click. The valley outside was still half winter, but inside the latch had spoken. This is mine. A door means I decide who crosses the sill, Clara said, voice low, fingers still on the latch. Elias dipped his chin. Your cabin. Your say. The words cracked something open inside her. She looked around. Walls raised through blizzard and blood. Roof that laughed at lightning. Hearth that fed them through the blackest nights. Now a door, choice, not just shelter. We mark it, she said suddenly. From a shelf, she took the last pinch of Holt's coffee. The pot hissed over the fire. Settlement eyes followed us, Clara said, pouring into the carved cups. Questions they didn't ask out loud. Elias cradled the cup, steam curling. Let him wonder. Does it bother you what they'll say? He met her gaze. Folks need tidy tales. Some things just are. Outside, spring light stretched long across the porch boards. To doors, Clara said, lifting her cup, and the right to open or shut them. And to hands strong enough to hang their own, Elias answered, the corner of his mouth lifting, almost a smile. May turned whispering Moose Canyon inside out. Snow fled to the high boles. Meadows burst purple, gold, white. Willows along the creek flashed pale green. A violet rooted itself beside the doorstep, stubborn and bright. The lodge stood finished, log snug, chinking cured hard. Elias still came every day, sometimes dawn, sometimes dusk, carrying trout, early strawberries, once a fist of wild ramps. They broke ground for the garden. Clara turned the black soil. Elias showed her to weave willow withes into a low fence. You're turning ridgeborn, he said the day she skinned a snare rabbit clean in 3 strokes. Thanks to you. He shook his head. I showed the path. You walked it. Clara wiped her hands on her apron, looked at the lodge, the garden, the man leaning on his axe. The helpless girl left in the snow was gone. In her place stood Clara Bennett, hands sure, shoulders steady, door latched when she chose. The creak of iron rims on wet dirt rolled up the valley. A wagon, 1 tired mule team, a man at the reins, woman beside him, 3 kids peering from the canvas, lurched into view and stopped when the cabin came clear. Oh, the man called, lifting a hand. Didn't figure anyone wintered here. Elias stepped half in front of Clara. 2 roofs. Valley's big enough. The man eyed the green meadows. Oregon bound. High pass still snowed shut. Heard this notch skirts the ridge. Open now, Elias said. Muddy but open. The woman sagged with relief. Could we beg water? Young uns are dry. Clara moved past Elias. I'll fill your jugs. While she worked the rain barrel spigot, the family climbed down to stretch. The oldest boy, maybe 10, stared. You live here alone? Tommy Manners, his mother hissed. Clara smiled. My own cabin. Neighbor's clothes. She tipped her chin toward Elias. The mother helped lift a bucket. Rare sight, a girl your age out here. Most would be shaking. I shook once, Clara said. Not anymore. They traded talk, garden rows, drying berries, which creek ran sweetest. The father drifted back to Elias. Wife's kin in clear water, 3 valleys west. Said stop for flour before the last push. Clara's hand stilled on the dipper. Elias's eyes found hers across the yard. Good folk there, he asked the traveler, voice flat. Some. Wife's sister, what a mason, farm family, came in last fall. Letters say they're thriving. Mason. The wagon rolled on after Elias sketched the ridge trail in the dirt. Silence settled thick as churn mud. You steady? Elias asked. Clara plucked the doorstep violet, rolled the stem between thumb and finger. They buried me in words, she said. Started fresh. Change anything, knowing they're breathing 3 valleys off. She looked at the cabin, the garden patch, the man waiting on her answer. I'm no ghost, she said, voice rising like sap. I'm here, breathing louder. Elias nodded once, as if the matter were sealed. At the clearing's edge, he paused. Folks pick their trails, he said. Yours looks straighter. Then he was gone, swallowed by the pines. Summer draped the canyon in heat and cricket hum. Clara's garden shot up, potato vines thick as wrists, turnip tops brushing her knees. Berries hung heavy. She stained her fingers purple, filling every bowl. Elias still came daily, but now with cedar shavings in his hair instead of snow. He built a porch table, shelves for jars of jam, a chair shaped to Clara's frame. Winter nights stretch, he said, planing the armrest smooth. Might as well sit easy. Clara sanded the curves, carved a tiny fox into the backrest. Too fine for daily, she said. Strong and pretty walk together, he answered. July sun blazed when another wagon rolled in. Young couple. Baby on the woman's hip, tools lashed tight. Room to settle? The man, James asked. Valley's wide, Elias said. Sarah's eyes found Clara's. I know plants, she offered, shifting the child. Brought roots and seed. Inside, over cool water, Sarah nursed while Clara set out bread. You built this alone? Sarah asked, taking in the snug room. Elias raised the walls. I learned to hold them up. Sarah understood without more words. And him, she murmured, glancing through the door where Elias traced a home site in the dirt. Just Elias, Clara said. The phrase felt suddenly thin, like cloth worn at the fold. By dusk the deal was struck. James and Sarah would raise their cabin a quarter-mile downstream, near enough to share coffee, far enough to keep the wind private. Elias unrolled a scrap of hide on Clara's table and drew the valley in charcoal. Her lodge, the new site, the creek's bend, the lightning-split cedar halfway between. Valley's filling, he said, shading the trail worn smooth by their boots. Won't be just us. Clara traced the line between cabins. Does that sit wrong with you? Change is weather, he said. Comes whether you vote or not. She studied his face. And us. His eyes lifted steady. That's yours to name. He rolled the map, tied it with rawhide, and set it in her hands. Land as it stands today, before mooring spills. The gift was more than lines. 2 roofs, 1 path, choice, not chain. Elias left at twilight. Clara watched from the doorway until the trees took him. Autumn flared. Aspens bled gold, rose hips glowed like coals, blueberries burned copper. Clara dug potatoes, crates full, smoked trout, hung herb bundles to dry. Elias split kindling, checked James and Sarah's chinking, passed on winter tricks. Your first mountain cold will bite, he told them, packing clay between logs, but neighbors blunt the teeth. October noon, crisp and bright. Elias arrived with 2 new chairs slung across his shoulders. 1 for each roof, he said, setting them on Clara's porch. She ran her palm over the wood. One bore a carved trout leaping, the other a tiny fox curled asleep. Same bones, different stories, he said. Clara smiled. You've been listening. Hard not to, he answered, and for once the quiet between them felt like a third chair, waiting to be filled. They're more than chairs, Clara said, tracing the carved peaks on one back, the pine branches on the other. Which roof gets which? Elias shifted his weight, the rare flicker of doubt crossing his face. That's why I'm here. Winter's coming. We decide how. The question had hovered all summer, unspoken. Last winter necessity had ruled. This year they had room to choose. Clara sat in the mountain chair. It fit her like it had waited. I've been thinking too. Elias stayed standing, hands in pockets. Built you a door so you'd never need another's permission. Won't crowd that. Clara rose, stepped close. The cabin taught me I'm not helpless. Needing help isn't the same as being help. His eyes held hers. I learned strength isn't only swinging an axe. Silence settled, easy, full. So, winter, she asked. We keep our roofs, he said. Path stays swept. Snow can't erase choice. Neither merger nor distance. A trail kept open. Clara smiled. Chair with the mountain stays here. Remind me what's outside. Pine branches go to your place. Reminds you what's inside my door. They spent the dusk banking wood, caulking seams, latching shutters. Hands moved in practice duet. At twilight, they stood midway between cabins, the footpath dark between starlit roofs. Winter will be different, Clara said. Everything is, Elias answered. Good night, Elias. Till tomorrow. The path lay quiet, No demand, no barrier. Just possibility, trodden smooth by two sets of boots and the promise of snow. 1 year to the day since Clara Bennett was left in Whispering Moose Canyon. She stood on her porch watching smoke braid into cold November air. The lodge had taken sun and storm. Its cedar glowed honey dark. Inside, shelves of spuds and jam, herb bundles scenting the rafters, bed and table and chairs that fit her like gloves. Deep water again? Elias asked, boots on the path, a leather-wrapped bundle in his hands. Marking the calendar, Clara said, making room on the step. He sat. No more words needed. The date lived between them. Year turns everything, she said. Turns it right, he answered. Smoke rose from James and Sarah's chimney too. Sarah says her cousin's eyeing a home site come green up, Clara told him. Good dirt pulls good hearts. Elias set the bundle down. Inside, an iron key, handle twined like roots. Smith's boy practiced fancy work, he said. Your door's bare. My door doesn't lock. Could, he said, if you ever want. Clara rolled the key across her palm. What needs locking? Not thieves. Choice. Knowing you can shut the world when you please. She smiled. Install it when I say. They walked to the clearing where her lean-to had once crouched. Nothing left but a scar of bare earth. I was sure I'd die here, she said. Fear's a sharp teacher, Elias replied. Poor builder. What if you'd never come? Only one trail got boots on it. They returned at slant light. Elias fitted the lock. Smooth, sure. Clara turned the key. Click. Gray Cloud and Running Brook stepped from the trees, bows slung, smiles wide. Walls still standing, Gray Cloud called. We wagered on the Fox Girl. Running Brook studied the lodge. Built with the mountain's blessing. They ate on the porch, venison, Sarah's bread, summer in jars. Talk ran easy across languages. Snow depth, elk sign, the coming cold. Dark settled. Elias shouldered his pack. Lock or don't, he said from the path. Clara lifted the key, warm from her hand. Open tonight. Some doors breathe better that way. Two chimneys sent smoke into the same sky. Two roofs, one path. Choice kept bright between them. The girl left for dead had built a life wide enough to hold tomorrow. Door open, key ready, heart steady.